Have you ever wondered how you can change your financial life? This is a really big question, but in today's video, I'm going to show you the steps to do just that so you can have a bright financial future. Frank Thomas here, Wealth Generation Strategies, and today we're going to be talking about the big question, and that is, how do you change your financial life? Now, it's a really interesting question because it's not all about money. It's also about your life in general. But money really does come to play when you think about it. I'm going to be touching a few points here today that if you nail all these points, wow, what a difference it can make. And I can tell you from my own experience, because I went from having nothing. I mean, I had a house, but I had a mortgage and I had loans and I had nothing basically, to 4 years later, I've saved up a lot of money and things are just looking so different at this point in time. So can you do it? You bet. Let's get started. Point number one, you need to become very intentional. There's an old saying that says, and that is, what you can't measure, you can't manage. This means building a budget. This means, in terms of being intentional, thinking about where your money's going to on a monthly basis or every paycheck. You got to know what's coming in and what's going out. Become very intentional when you're looking at your money. And that's the beginning. Number two, and this is critically important as well, you need to pay yourself first. Don't rob from your future self, in other words. I like to say that, and people go, Frank, what do you mean, don't rob from your future self? What I'm telling you is, if you don't pay yourself first, in other words, you make yourself a priority in your finances. One of the actual expenses that is right at the very top of the list, right where you pay the government, you gotta pay you too. Because if you don't, you're not ever gonna have a financial future. Yes, I do harp on this all the time, but you gotta learn to pay yourself first. That does mean you're not robbing from your future self. What happens if you were able to save $1,000 a month, but you didn't? What is that worth in 30 years? It's worth a crazy amount, and your future self is gonna hit you with a stick. Because me, right now, I'd love to go back to my 30-year-old self and start beating the crap out of myself because, come on, man, it wouldn't have taken a lot. It would have just been that diligence in being intentional and then paying myself first. Let's get to point number three. But before we get to point number three, be sure, if you're enjoying this video so far, give it a like and consider subscribing. Really appreciate it. And you'll always know when I drop the next video. So make sure you subscribe. We're going to get a little bit deeper now, and when we're looking at the intentional part of things, we need to make sure in number three that we review all your monthly expenses. Every single month. Know what you got going out. So in other words, I'd say at the least once every quarter, so once every 3 months, review all your expenses. Cut any that are not adding the appropriate value for your life, that you're paying for it, and also make sure you're getting the best deal on every expense. How can I get a deal on my expenses? Let me tell you something. If you go and you challenge all your expenses, you might discover that you can get a cheaper price on your car insurance, or you can get a cheaper price on your house insurance. I was almost able to cut my house insurance in half, but I had to go and investigate it. And I had to be audacious enough to say, hey, can we do better than what I'm already doing? I'll be honest with you, my original insurance broker for my house was like, get lost, this is what the expense is, pay it. And I was like, I don't like that answer. So I went to an insurance broker, and they got me a much better deal, and I had exactly the same coverage. Review all your monthly expenses so you're only paying for things that you really should be paying for. Number four. Now, number four makes a lot of people uncomfortable, but you got to do it, and that's review your income potential. Remember, right now, you're trading your precious time that you cannot make a single second more of for money. So make sure you make yourself worth as much as physically possible for every minute that you give to a job. So how do we do that? Right off the kick, become more skilled at your trade. If you are a laborer, learn how to do a specialty in that job. I remember way back when, the best I could get was a job as a security guard. And this was when I was a young guy. And I went and got my trucker's license. And I was able to go from, let's say in today's rates, $15 an hour to $25 an hour. So I made myself worth more, but I didn't stop there. After I did that for a little while, I was like, how can I make myself worth more? And I started taking management courses. So I became the manager in the shop, and I made a little bit more again. Needless to say, I've been doing this my whole life, and now I'm making more than most people can dream of. And I'm not being a show-off when I say this, but yes, I do make a lot more than most people do. And that is because I've always continued to increase my education, and I would shift to a better position. I would always review what I'm doing. I have other videos in my channel. Take a peek. It gets a little more detailed. Next, also question your current rate of pay. Sometimes when you've worked for a company for a while, what happens is they'll give you little pay raises, but you start to fall out of step with the other companies around you, what they're paying for your position. Or you could go into a position that is a higher rate of pay and you don't really see the increase in pay. That happens quite often. So make sure you challenge your pay. It's not hard to do. Talk to HR. Sometimes HR is not going to play ball, so maybe you got to look across the street and see what they'll pay you and bone up your resume and get a job across the street. Now, this is not, like I said, this is not something you might want to do, but you got to make your current income potential as high as physically possible. Number 5. Now, if you've done all the first 4, this is where you're going to start to funnel your money gains. What does that mean? If you've got an increase in pay yourself first fund should increase. And if you're able to drop your expenses, your pay yourself first fund should increase, if you haven't guessed. You want to make sure that you really supercharge your efforts. Between reducing your expenses and increasing your pay, you can increase how much you save by a few $100s to a few $1,000s a month. And this is no joke. If you learn how to supercharge your efforts, wherever you're trying to get to and how much you want to save for one day in the future, you're going to get there much faster. I say to people, especially young people, if they become a little audacious and they decide to really go at this like a pit bull on a pork chop, I tell you, you can become a millionaire in under 10 years. People say that, Frank, is impossible. I'm 50 years old, or I'm 60 years old, or I'm 40 years old, or whatever old you are, and I've never saved $1 million, and I've lived a few 10 years. It's because you've never taken these steps and become audacious about them. Become audacious. And my next point is going to help you even take a next step further and supercharge things even faster. Once again, number 6 is all about increasing your income. So think about side gigs. And you're thinking, oh, do I got to deliver papers too? No. Believe it or not, side gigs are really the way to put rocket boosters on your ability to speed up your efforts. And look for simple side gigs that you can do that can potentially turn into more streams of income. Hey, I'm a programmer. Let me give you an example. I'm a programmer and I do videos on YouTube about programming. Eventually, the channel is going to take off and start to earn money, as well as I can build a course, I can build cheat sheets, I can write books on it. You name it, you can do it. And it doesn't have to be about your current profession. It could be that you just want to have a blog on YouTube and tell everybody about your life and how much you hate it or how much you love it or whatever it is. And you know something? One day that could turn into another side gig or a revenue stream. So look for any way you can to create little revenue streams. And don't try to make $1 million every month. Try to make a few extra bucks. It turns into a lot more money a lot faster. I took a side gig that earned me no money for the first 6 months. And in month number 7, I made maybe $200. Fast forward 1 year, and this gig was paying me $500,000 a year all by itself. Hey, take notice, and this will really supercharge your efforts to save. Point number 7. Start to think and plan for the long game. This is a very critical point. You have to know where you're going, or you might end up somewhere where you just don't want to be, okay? Know what you're saving towards, how much you're going to save, and how long you think that's going to take. And what are you going to do when you get there? So you got to think about this long-term game and get your family involved. Even if you have a young family and you might not retire or you might not, let's say, change your lifestyle for another 15 or 20 years, still get them involved, let them watch what you're doing, teach them what you're doing, and you know something? You're going to put them on your shoulders and they're going to have a huge advantage over you. And that's good. That's what you want to do with your kids. So start thinking about that long-term game. Like I said, this is critical. You got to know where you're going. A, you're not going to stick to the plan and make it happen. And B, you're not going to be happy. If you know where you're going and what you're going to have, you're going to be willing to give up some things today to have a better tomorrow. So to me, these are the 7 things that are going to help you change your financial life. So let's say you did all these 7 points and you've started to save. What do you do with it? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I just did a video that's called How to Earn Interest on Your Money, and it talks about that. It should be showing up on the screen right now. Go take a look at it. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Otherwise, my name is Frank Thomas. Like I said earlier, if you like this video, give it a like and be sure to subscribe. Otherwise, I want to wish you a pleasant day and start changing your financial life today.